Good evening and welcome to the FFS podcast. I'm your host, Praddy, once again, and this is the second episode of the new series that we've created, and it's called The Dressing Room. Now, we did the first episode a while ago, so I wouldn't blame you if you don't recall that. But basically, in this particular series, I interview the guests who've been on the podcast for our other series, whether it be the main FFS series, the It's Classified series, our watch alongs. So we're kind of going back all the way to square one, and we are spending a little time with our guests, a little more time with our guests, and getting to know a bit about their life, a little bit about themselves, what their interests are. It's basic. The series is everything but football. So we're not going to be talking about their favorite clubs, favorite players. We're not going to be talking about anything related to football. But we will be talking to them about their lives, about their interests, their hobbies, and it's just going to be a general short chat with our guests from the past. And in today's episode, we've got, you could really say a blast from the past. It is Vijay. Vijay, welcome to the podcast. It's been a while, really, it's been a while. And I'm not only saying that, I normally say that for any person who comes onto the podcast because it technically has been a while. But for you, I think it's really been a while. And I'm glad we could have you on here. Before we get to just generally chatting about your life, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Firstly, thanks for having me back, Radia. It has been a very, very long time indeed. Life's been keeping us busy, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so Vijay, like, so to those of you listening to this, first of all, so the reason I did this is so that to those of you listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube, you get to know a little bit more about the guests that we have on here. Perhaps you have more in common with some of them than you think. So it's just not, bound down to the football club that you both like, or the players that you root for, or you stand, as we nowadays say that. So it could go way beyond that. It could be you could be living in the same cities. You could probably be, it's a small world. You never know where the connections all lie. So that was the intention of this particular series. And yeah, we've got a total of 10 guests lined up for season one of the series. And yeah, I'm glad Vijay is quite early on, because Vijay, I don't know about you, but for me, I think you were probably the most vital part of this podcast, or the sort of the turning point for this podcast, because before you, and you were probably my first guest where I didn't know who you were beforehand. So everyone who I had before you were either people from my schooling days, so people who were my juniors, or my around the same batch as I was. And so you were the first person on here that I had no connection with, or I had no clue who you were. And yes, that's basically how this, and it sort of became a turning point, because you said, you suggested join Twitter, and since then the podcast has become what it is. But that's how I know you. So I just wanted to get to know, was that the first time we probably met? I'm pretty sure it is. I don't think we've met before that. Or
No, we've not met in person. In fact, the only time we've seen each other probably is through pictures, through, any other videos or some other features that may come out there,
yeah.
even, through your podcast itself. So we've never met in person. So for whoever is, thinking that this is scripted, definitely not.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think that was because now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the person who introduced me to you was Junaid. Now, I don't know if you know Junaid from Dubai, and I want to know
Junaid used
how yeah.
So Junaid is a close friend. He's one of those one of those guys who I'd call a top guy because I've known him for quite a while. He was based out of Bangalore for a couple of years, and that's how I met him through a mutual friend, and then from there we just started hanging out, sitting together, and then we realized, what, we had this similar thought about each other, that this guy's pretty cool. We can always chill, we can hang out. So that's how it came to blossom. And I remember this one time when I decided, I mean, I was back from Delhi from a work trip, and Junaid was one of the few people who knew about it. Like, obviously, my brother knew because someone at home needs to know about it. And it was a very, very long work trip, like 7 months, if I'm not mistaken. And Junaid was just like, you know what? I'm picking you up. We'll go grab dinner, and then you can go and surprise your parents. That's like
Nice.
that's the type of bond we have. Like, even when I visited Dubai, he was kind and kind enough to show me around, take me around to some cool shawarma spots. And for context here, I'm someone who's lived in the Gulf myself. So
Okay.
for me, coming back after all those years and having like those typical Gulf shawarmas, you can imagine what sort of emotional
Of course.
satisfaction that would have given.
So, did you stay in UAE as well, or where did you
No,
stay?
I was in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain collectively from '94, which was when I was less than a year old till when I just started my seventh grade. Then
Okay.
dad finally called it a day and decided to move back to India. And I've been in Bangalore since then.
Where
I mean, I've
where
had
in
work trips outside of Bangalore.
where in Saudi were you?
Dammam. I was based out of
Okay.
Dammam.
Okay. Because I was in Saudi for, I think, I mean, we would have interlapped there, but I was in Riyadh, so don't think we would have interlapped
Right.
anyway. Yeah. So I
Right.
was there from 94 as well. I think no, sorry, 96 to 98. So 90,
Uh,
96 to 99 ish. So yeah, around 98, 99. So I was there for those 2 years. So I was wondering, like, did we somehow have another thread? But that's what I was talking about. These connections come out of nowhere. It's such a small world that Junaid, and then like you used to be a junior in my school. So um, yeah, it's just like it was just happenstance, and like I said, it was crazy meeting you, and I think yeah, it was such a turning point for the podcast as well, and for me as well to grow up and interact. I think like I said, you were my first unknown person who I had on the podcast, and I'm not the kind of person who does a lot of small talk or interactions with people I don't know. And so, like with you, I got a little more comfortable. Like, okay, and then you suggested things that I need to do in order to grow my network. And yeah, I mean, it's all thanks. I mean, it's funny, but after so many years, but it's all thanks down to that little bit of advice that you'd given me early on. That get onto Twitter. I know a part of me hates you for that because Twitter is such.
it's toxic. It is
It
toxic.
is. It
I
is
will
so
never deny
problematic.
that.
Yeah. But like I said, the podcast wouldn't be what it is. And yeah, so let's talk about what you do. So you're obviously now in Bangalore, right?
Yep.
Um.
Yep.
So where do you stay in Bangalore? Because I'm also from Bangalore, so I want to know where
I'm
exactly.
put up in North Bangalore, basically in this area called RMB Second Stage, which is near Ramaya Hospital. So
Okay.
it's
All right.
probably the easiest landmark for anyone who knows the bits and basics of Bangalore to figure out that's where I'm based out of. So it's not. I mean, it's a pretty cool place. You got a lot of nice restaurants, nice cafes, pubs to go chill out at. But the only thing it's missing probably is just a pub where events and stuff happen, like karaoke nights, dance nights, and the like.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this whole place is complete. You don't really need to go. I mean, you wouldn't need to go to the CBD area or Indranagar or Koramangala to party if there was something of that sort over here. But
Right.
then again, I'm not much of a party person. Probably once in a while. I
Yeah.
just feel like it's best to just have as many options as you can.
That's true. And also, of course, you need to mention about the Bangalore traffic, or you don't want to mention about the Bangalore traffic because you don't want to really go out anywhere apart from your own locality. And if that's got everything, then that's just the dream.
Not really. I mean, I'm used to it by now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always going to be irritating. It's just one of those things you just put up with and just get along with I mean, however it may be.
Yeah.
But yes, the traffic is probably the biggest thorn in the side for anyone. Apart from bad roads as well. But then let's look at it this way: Bangalore's traffic is notorious just because it's people who have come from other places and complaining about Bangalore traffic. It happens everywhere, every big city. I'm pretty sure Sheikh Zayed Highway is also pretty messed up during peak hours.
During peak hours, yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, but I suppose the bad roads does compound that pain of being there. But
Absolutely.
okay, we are not here to talk about Bangalore traffic. So what? So were you born and brought up in Bangalore, or like born in Bangalore, or what's
Yes,
the connection to being back in
yes.
Bangalore?
Born in Bangalore. Most of some bunch of my relatives, mostly from my mom's side and a couple from my dad's side, are based out of Bangalore as well. So dad got a job in '94, and then we moved to the Gulf. We were there till 2005, and from 2005 onwards, we've been back in Bangalore itself. And um, I mean, as much as I want to go abroad again, I just feel. I mean, I've over the years, I've just learned that, it's not as hunky dory as you think. You really need to plan well in advance. You need to find the right opportunity. And you need to be mentally ready also, because it's just like, unless you're going for a master's degree where, you're going to have friend circles and other activities to be part of, you're basically starting from scratch. And
Yeah,
there's nothing more scary than letting go of that safety net. I like to call it a safety net,
true.
where, you've got your set of friends, a stable life happening, and then you're just or in a way just changing it, or in a way saying, no, I'm going to try something new. It's not at
Yeah,
all easy. And I mean, I'm open to it, but the opportunity and the setting and the timing also needs to be right, because, um, so funnily what happened was in 2018 actually, my dad passed away, and I cleared my CA in 2019. Oh, by the way, please, guys, whoever's listening, don't think I'm a nerd. I'm much more than that. Just because I'm a chartered accountant doesn't, classify me as a nerd.
yeah.
But yeah, coming back to the point, I did have a couple of chances to move to Dubai pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I consciously didn't, just because I didn't feel like it was the right time, since it was just a little less than a year since dad had passed. I don't regret the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that there's obviously going to be a question of what if, but in this case, that what if doesn't hurt as much, because I just felt like not the right time right now.
Of
Probably if it
course.
was a year or two down the line, maybe.
Yeah,
And right now, I'm pretty sure the market is slowly picking up. So still enough time for me to weigh my options in case something really good does pop up. At
true.
the moment,
And
I'm comfortable to where I am.
yeah, of course, there is that, it resistance to change, I suppose. Moving somewhere where you're not sure, how the lifestyle is going to be like. For me, moving, I spent my entire childhood in UAE, in Dubai especially, right, or in the Gulf. So let's say Saudi and Dubai. Uh, Moving to India for my undergrad was such a shock in terms of the culture. Like
I know
the
what you mean. I
the
know
the
what you mean.
the first month or so, I was so homesick. um it was not, I thought of like, packing everything and going back, but it, like, the first month, you kind of, I had to weather it out in a bit. It did help that I was staying with my aunt and uncle, and my cousin also was there, so it kind of did help that I had familiar surroundings. But it still didn't take away from that culture shock, and it's probably going to be the same thing whether you come to the Dubai. Probably, I would say you wouldn't feel that much of a, given that you've also stayed in the Gulf. But like UAE or the Gulf sort of has this unique characteristic of having the best of both worlds of sorts. Provided
Absolutely.
provided you earn well, right? If you That's the whole point. So
Definitely.
yeah, so you
Definitely.
in any, yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
because what I was trying to say was, like, I have a couple of friends over there, and they say it's very difficult to save money. And my first thought is, if I have to move, I need something that's not only going to pay me well, but I need to be able to save something,
Yeah,
considering my lifestyle.
of course. Yeah.
And so far, there is no such opportunity that I've found, which has come up. And just touching upon what you said about, the best of both worlds bit. Most people want the best of both worlds, which is why, compared to, Europe, or I wouldn't take US, because US, it's mostly people who are in the US that get job opportunities. But let's say Europe, or even Australia for that matter, competition is far more cutthroat because of the ease of accessibility to come back to India for any Indian as such. And the best of both worlds, but you get the whole Indian feel. At the same time, it's not India. It's
Yeah.
it's a different world altogether.
Yeah. And I suppose also from like a travel perspective, you don't think it's too far. People have this perception, oh, it's like America's way too far. You just, UAE is like your sort of second door down from home or sorts. But
True.
yeah, so let's talk about Vijay apart from being the Bayern fan and the Bengaluru FC fan. what are your other interests? Like, what does Vijay, or what do you do? I was thinking I'll continue in the third person. Let's not do that. So what do you do though on a normal weekdays once you're off work? Like, what is your, you know, uh, your life, your social life like outside of the four walls of the office?
Well, on weekdays, absolutely no social life because everyone, at least if you're in India, you know
Yeah,
how crazy work life is.
I do know.
Most people don't even get time, and by the time they're away free, also they just want to go home and crash. It's very very rare that you find something happening midweek. And location also matters because everyone's in different parts of the city, and it doesn't exactly become easy if there's nothing which is too far away as such. But what I tend to do is not necessarily after work, like work wise, it's a little flexible for me, which I'm very, very, lucky and I'm grateful for that. Sometimes even between work, because I have my work hours are not exactly fixed because I work with, US offices and US clientele.
Okay.
Um, I have to be available for certain calls, which, can go after 8 p.m. as well, even though I start at like 9:30 in the morning. So in between, I go out for a walk. I, probably I get a workout or two if I can. And yeah, workouts has been one thing I've been trying of late just to, get a little more fit. Um, I've hit a bit of a snag of late because of a bit of health issues. Nothing too serious, but it kept me out. Let's just say it kept me out of commission for a while. So just slowly getting back into that as well. And apart from that, what Vijay does, what I do rather,
Yeah,
what
I
I
know.
do.
It's very very catchy by calling yourself in the third person. Very very catchy.
True, true, true.
Yeah.
So what I tend to usually do is I tend to discover a lot of new music. I'm a big time music buff.
Okay.
Um, I grew up a metalhead because my
Nice.
brother used to listen to a lot of rock and metal as a kid, and I got exposed to that. Very thankful for that as well. But over time, I had these weird phases where one point I was into, a lot of mainstream Bollywood music because I had a phase where I was into, dancing as well. And from there,
Okay.
from freestyle and Bollywood dancing, it went to hip hop. So hip hop and gangster rap also had a phase. And then once I started pursuing my CA, I, got into lounge and world music, which was a whole different world
Yeah.
altogether.
Yeah.
And one point you won't believe this. I used to like check out consciously works by Mozart, Tchaikovsky, Chopin. There was a weird phase. I mean, weird in the sense like you
Yeah.
wouldn't think most people would even check out classical orchestral music like that.
No,
But
I knew someone who in my masters when he used to study, he used to have rain noises and thunder noises playing on Spotify, right? Like you have like 24 hours of rain and thunder. So they keep that. I don't know if it's because it's like a calming noise or something like that. But this was in the UK, so you didn't even need to have a earphone for rain and thunder. Just open the window. You probably had that 24/7. But yeah,
true, true. But yeah, apart from that, just currently I'm into a lot of deep house and ambient music. But
okay,
as such, if I have to explain my musical taste, I'd probably say I'm a connoisseur who will listen to anything as long as his ear tolerates it.
fair enough.
Because
Okay,
there's certain subgenres, like let's say for example, there's a genre called grindcore and metal, which it's an ear bleed. Some people like it. It's not my cup of tea, but at the same time, let me put it this way: I can listen to any mainstream song. Like I'll group to Dua Lipa also. She's got a great voice and she makes some good music. If my
yeah,
ear tolerates it. If I don't like the song, I don't like the song.
fair
So
enough.
genre, for the most part, irrespective, as long as my ear likes it.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to you in that sense. Like I don't have one particular genre that I'm like stuck onto that I won't listen to anything else. But for me, I suppose it's something that I can sing to or have on like a karaoke sort of playlist. So like any song, whether it be metal, anything, where if I'm driving anywhere, I will put that on Spotify on my radio and I will sing to it. So that has to probably be something that yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably one of my criteria for that.
right, right. So since you brought up the whole music bit, my office is like 25 kilometers away, and imagine that in Bangalore traffic. So if I and when the weather's pretty bad, I do take the car out, and if not for my music, I'd probably curse every freaking person in traffic and go full on road rage mode. The music keeps me sane. The music keeps me calm. It distracts me in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I don't get into accidents and shit. But it's like a calming thing, and uh, like I don't think I've ever done carpool karaoke, but
Oh,
since you mentioned karaoke as such, I definitely love karaoke nights. It's a whole different vibe altogether.
yeah.
Just awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's the
Unfortunately, they
Bangalore
don't
Singers
have.
Union.
Unfortunately they don't have many here, like bars, and the bars that do have a little like on the more expensive side. But um, like we used to have in UK, in school, in college, we used to have a couple of every Wednesday or something used to be karaoke. And we used to go there. I never used to get onto the mic, but you sit down there whenever they're singing, you sing along, and the whole bar is anyway doing that. So it used to be crazy fun. But
It
yeah,
is.
it's so okay. So top five bands of all time, yours, obviously, right now.
Ooh, that's putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um, Deftones. And this is in no particular
Okay.
order, by the way.
Okay.
Deftones, because I'm immensely in love with that band. They're one of the most unique sounding bands ever. So
Okay.
Deftones is definitely going to be one of them. Two, I would say Slipknot,
Okay.
because I grew up listening to,
Yeah.
the Slipknot of Iowa, and that was something else. Uh, which other? I would have said Limp Bizkit, but then they've fallen off the trajectory so badly.
Yeah.
Korn
Okay.
is definitely one of them. So that makes three. Oh, this is tough. This is tough. Um, Alter Bridge,
Oh yeah.
one of the most
Oh,
underrated bands out there.
insane.
Alter Bridge,
Yeah.
love them,
Yep.
love them.
Yeah, definitely.
And they do not get enough mainstream attention in the US, which is ironic. Like
Yeah.
they're well received in the Europe,
Yeah.
but in European countries primarily, but they deserve a lot more recognition in their
Oh
own home countries. What I feel.
yeah.
Um, so that's four.
Last.
Fifth one is a bit of a doozy. So I think which band could I even think of? Okay, I wouldn't. I would say they are one of my all-time faves simply because I always found them extremely unique in their sound. Like, have you like this is a band which has two lead vocalists, where one's a male and one's a female. It's Lacuna Coil. Love them,
Okay.
like love their sound, love their style. And even though they have changed their sound over a while, there is a signature feel that this is Lacuna Coil that's playing. They're basically, and for people who don't know, Lacuna Coil is an Italian goth band. They've been around since the
Wow.
early 2000s, and
Okay.
they make some stellar music.
Interesting. All right. Great. Okay. Another music question. Staying on the music theme. Concerts, yay or nay?
I can't comment on this because I've never really.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's
I
fine.
can't comment on this because I've never really been to a concert ever.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I've put, like, when I met Junaid last, I met him in 2019, just before I started my job,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a solo trip. Like the solo trip, everything was great. Like I went for the apparently what was called a loaded tour package, which was great value for money. Did all sorts of fun activities, and everything was great. But the only problem was for me, it just felt like there should have been someone there. And by
Yeah.
someone, I don't necessarily mean like a girlfriend or something. Could have been a friend, could have been family, someone.
Yeah.
It just felt like it felt incomplete. So similarly, when it comes to stuff like parties, when it comes to gigs, all these things, unless I have company, I don't really feel like it because it feels like it just feels like it was good but not complete.
Exactly. Okay. I get that.
And
Yeah.
I've missed Metallica because I couldn't I missed out on getting tickets.
Yeah.
Uh, I missed out on Lacuna Coil because I did not even know they were coming to Bangalore at the time, and I was just like,
Oh, damn.
dude, what the hell?
Yeah, Metallica. Long time ago, I remember my cousin had gotten tickets in Delhi. So at that point, I told him I wasn't coming, and it turns out that they went to the arena, and then Metallica basically cancelled it last minute because they weren't happy with the sound and everything.
And the
Um,
whole place got vandalized.
yeah, yeah. And so I was like, oh, thank God I didn't miss that, because I feel like now if I realized that I missed out on Metallica, I would have been so irritated by it. But yeah, and that's also because they don't come this side that often. It's either Europe, America, the Americas, Australia probably. But yeah, they need to come this side of town.
Yeah.
They probably
Okay.
did. Actually, they did actually in Abu Dhabi, but I don't think I was in town. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. I forgot to mention one more band. Honorable mention. just because I started listening to them probably very late, and I listened to them. I got to know them more from their modern music rather than their original music. Alice in Chains, love,
Oh,
love, love
okay.
Alice in Chains.
Interesting.
They
Okay.
are one
Yeah.
band who lost their voice,
Yeah.
got a different voice, and still are killing it even now. So mad respect for a band like that.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's quite a varied list of bands over there. Probably go check out the Italian goth one because I've never heard of the guys. The others I've heard of in some capacity, but yeah, probably gonna go check that out. All right, so we know music is definitely on the table for you. What else? What are your other interests? Whether it be sports. I know you're a huge wrestling WWE fan because my Twitter
I'm a pro wrestling
especially.
fan. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big pro wrestling fan.
Hmm.
I'm just not one of those tribal fans who are like, WWE sucks, AEW is better, or
Oh,
AEW sucks,
I
WWE is
thought
better.
you
I
meant
just like enjoying pro
like a Roman Reigns stan or something. When you said tribal, I was like, oh, okay, fine.
no, no, no.
Uh,
It's basic tribalism. Like you've seen this with
yeah,
you've seen this for everyone who's listening. The easiest way to relate to it: Ronaldo fans and Messi fans. Don't even look at football clubs. Just look at
yeah,
those two sets of fans.
yeah,
Probably the most tribal bunch out there after all the political fanatics.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm not one of those guys. I like enjoying good pro wrestling. Um I know people will say it's fake. I like to call it athletic circus because the injuries are real. It's just that it's scripted.
Yeah,
And fun thing is UFC athletes who compete in legitimate fighting, they have a fandom for
yeah,
WWE and the art of pro wrestling.
yeah,
So, I mean, if people cannot acknowledge that, then there's something really wrong with how they're perceiving it, is what I feel. But yeah, coming back to the point, yes, huge WWE fan. Been watching WWE since I was 97. I mean, sorry, since 97, since I was what,
yeah.
a little over 4 years old.
I mean, this became a
Uh,
Benjamin Button story there, but yeah, uh,
yeah, I meant to say like since 97. So yeah, it's been a very long time. I've seen
same.
when it was drab, seen the comeback, and honestly, right now there's a lot of good storylines and stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I'm gonna be blunt here, and this is a term which I've used for a lot of other things as well. People cannot get over nostalgia wanking. They all want only The Rock and the Austins, the Triple H's, the old
I
Undertakers,
think we're
and
in that era as well. I think everything nowadays that you see has to have some nostalgic event or some nostalgic link. Even when it comes to movies and TV shows and all of that stuff, there's a lot of nostalgia that people are now playing on. People like Disney's making all these remakes of the old cartoon movies. You see a lot of these things that are rebooting or remaking because everything is playing on nostalgia. And I don't know why, because in the past 5 years, I feel like everybody's like, oh, let's go on this nostalgia trip of how the 90s and the 2000s were great. I was like, yeah, that's great. It is. But like, uh, let's
it's
not,
a gray
let's,
area. It's a
yeah,
gray area because I'll tell you why. I've been always a proponent that gives current content a chance. I've always been a proponent of that,
yeah,
especially because of WWE.
yeah,
But at the same time, let me put it this way: we grew up lucky because, especially because we were in the Gulf,
yeah,
we grew up lucky with better cartoons than most people did. And when you see the new quality of cartoons, you're just
yeah.
like,
Okay,
I need my nostalgia back. So it's a
fair
very
enough.
gray area. It's very case to case basis. Um, but yeah, in general, I would always say, just give current content a chance. Don't shit on it without seeing the product. Give it a real chance. And for those of you who wonder how big of a WWE fan I am, let me just say that I bought a WWE Championship replica adult belt.
Yeah,
It's somewhere buried in one of my wardrobes,
yeah, yeah.
and it costed a bomb. Like
I
if you want
remember
to have
you
an idea,
debating whether to buy it or not on social media. It's like,
yeah.
oh, should I not? And I was like, oh, what's he buying now? And then it just came up. I was like, whoa, all right.
Funny story on that. When I got it, it was like the third last piece available, and then there's been no stock since.
You're lucky there. You're very, very lucky
Uh,
there.
it has zero uses, but it gives that
Oh yeah,
it
of
gives that
course.
whole satisfaction. A collector's item. You know what? I bought this with my own hard-earned money. I can feel happy about buying something I really wanted to buy, stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. And
Um,
it's a collector's item just to keep and for to know that you've cherished something, you might as well. Like I've got a couple of lightsabers in my cupboard right now. They don't have anything except for the fact that we're going to be, if my friend and I want to fight around with it, we just do that. But it's not got any like sort of other value for except for being sentimental and the fact that I got it for my 21st birthday. I love Star Wars, all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean those kind of things are the best though. Like if
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can turn my camera because I feel like my setup would go off, but I've got like an entire collection of like Tintin figurines.
Ah, nice,
Yes,
nice.
and I think half of them are all from the entertainment store in Bangalore. Okay, I raided that place. I think every time I go, like, yeah, let's go Church Street, Bangalore. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I think most of them were from there. And then I got like a Batman section. I've got like a Funko Pop Harry Potter thing, and just got tons of them. So they don't. At the end of the day, I can't do anything but keep them, or like I'm not even going to sell them. It's just for me because I love those things. So
Same.
yeah,
It's just one of those things, like it has that emotional connection with you and you alone, which not everyone would understand, and
yeah,
it doesn't matter if they do or not, because it's how special it is to you alone.
exactly. Yeah, people be like, "What is this nonsense? Why have you spent wasted your money on this?" But I mean, for us, it is. I wouldn't have.
Exactly.
That wasn't earmarked for anything else but this. Like I don't. It's not like I had anything else that I was going to. I wasn't going to go and party and buy tons of stuff. I just wanted this because I could. I knew I could get this and still, stay alive.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally agree.
So let's. Moving on to this last sort of question that I have for you, or this topic that we're going to be discussing is you are a huge proponent or a huge mental health activist on Twitter, right? So Mondays are your days basically. And it's great. I mean, I love seeing that. I just going to you know like, what does it mean to you, mental health, and what is your, I wouldn't say, see, I mean, it's not like you've started an organization, but what is your goal, what is your sort of aim, I suppose, as a layman, as someone who's just trying to get the word out there for people who are probably suffering from mental illness. What is the goal, or what is the aim of putting up these tweets or talking about mental health for you?
Okay. So full disclaimer, like off late, it's not been as good as I probably should do a lot more. But just
The
like
fact that
how
you're
like
doing
how all
anything.
these. Yeah, I mean, I do. I jointly run a mental health Insta page, but there's not been much going out there because off late we're just trying to figure out what to put out, which can make sense. And the thing is, both me and my fellow admin, neither of us are creative guys. So even though if we have the content, putting it out in a way that it looks presentable also is not all that easy. Um, but we genuinely do care about the cause. And my friend, his name's Chandan. He's a solid stormtrooper. Like he's probably managed that page better than I ever could, and forever grateful for all the help he's been giving, and just keeping that page afloat. Now coming to the main topic of mental health, it started with a bit of a sob story actually, because basically, as a teenager, I battled clinical depression, and I did not even realize that I had clinical depression until after I recovered. Because look, this was at a time where you tell someone, like, if this is probably a Bangalore based joke, like for people who won't understand. If you tell someone, hey, this guy you should admit him in immense because he's crazy
Yeah,
or he's retarded.
yeah,
Now when I hear that, I don't get angry. I just
yeah.
cringe at it because now I'm more aware of it. So what's this called? It's just because of that, because of the fact that I've battled depression. I've even battled suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies in the past as well. I've recovered from it, but on some level, no matter how much you recover, there's always going to be the little bit that happens. I've had a couple of episodes, very infrequent, thankfully, and full disclosure for anyone who's listening, I suffer from anxiety as well, and I'm not looking for any sympathy here. The only reason I'm telling this is because it's very, very normal.
Yeah.
I don't have the stats readily available with me, but uh, anyone suffers, every person suffers from some form of mental illness on varying degrees. Like your anxiety levels could be so low that it could be, you would just get your normal, you just feel anxious. But once it gets heightened, once it gets deepened, and the symptoms start developing further, and that's when you realize you are suffering from some form of anxiety or the other. And similar with depression, like when you there's so many symptoms which are characteristic of it, like irritability, loss of interest of doing anything, loss of appetite, general lack of disinterest in in anything. It could even be just getting out of bed. I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but just
No,
giving
no,
a
no.
basic idea of what it's
This
like.
is definitely, you know, yeah, needed. I think, yeah, the reason I didn't want to, egg you on into talking about uh, your specific, but just been a keen follower of what you've been doing on Twitter since I've known you or whatever. So I just wanted to get your thoughts, and for those of you listening as well, it's very important for you to know this, for you to hear this, and yeah, it's basically for people who are also listening to this. So yeah, yeah,
Yes. So the whole thing started when, I just heard about this concept called mental health when, I think this was in 2016 or 17, somewhere around that time. Like basically when I was following to this one combat sports commentator named Mauro Ronaldo. He's a famous sports commentator who's commentated for stuff like Bellator, Showtime Boxing, was associated with WWE as well for a few years. And he had put this thing out called, keep up the good fight, you will win it, hashtag mental health Monday. And that's how it started for me because I felt like, what, this is a nice message. This is a nice message. And when I started reading up on mental health, I realized, it's normal. It's actually very normal. And it's just that we don't treat it normally and we tend to disregard it as a problem. It's not a problem. It is an illness. Now, just because of that, there's a lot of people who are suffering in silence. Full respect to them for battling their demons. It's not at all easy, and to to overcome it itself is probably the most Herculean task out there, at least amongst the most Herculean tasks out there. Now, what happened was when I started venturing into the concept of mental health, it I mean, it gave me the realization that what, I suffer from depression and I didn't even know this. Now, how are people supposed to tackle things? Like in this case, I'm going to equate it to a problem because that's the easy way to put it. How do you tackle a problem without even knowing what the problem is?
yeah,
You get to know that only if there's some level of awareness involved, and that's when I started educating myself. I am not an expert on all topics mental health. I have a better understanding when it comes to depression, suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, and anxiety because currently I'm battling anxiety as well. But what happened and how my whole journey towards being very, very proactive on that front is I lost a friend in January 2018 to suicide, and I lost someone who I liked at the time as well a few months later to suicide as well. Neither of whom, I could make out what was going wrong because the friend, I mean, I lost touch with that friend a few years prior, but in that friend circle, no one ever thought he would be one to take his life because he was the most positive guy out there. He was the one, everyone thought he would make it in whatever he wants to do. And he didn't. He prematurely ended things. And it shocked all of us. It shocked all of us because the guy was a beaming aura of positivity and, just all good vibes all around. And that's one of the things, right? Like, let's take Robin Williams. Robin Williams is one of the
yeah,
most famed actors out there, putting a smile on God knows how many people's faces. And he also
yeah,
tragically took his life in 2014. Similar, like even with this other person, like this crush of mine, we were talking on a daily basis. And one time I had to go away because I had to prepare for my CA exams. I thought she was just disinterested when I came back. Fast forward a month later, I get to know from a mutual friend she took her life. I was just like, this cannot be happening. Two people in the span of a few months in my known circle. This cannot be happening. And since then, as difficult as it was initially, I started talking a lot more openly about my depression days, how difficult it was, what were the symptoms like, what were the signs like, how difficult it was to live life, how, so many times I just wanted to end everything. Eventually, it became easier. Like, I know it makes people uncomfortable because it's not easy to It's not easy to listen to just as much as
Yeah.
it's not easy to talk about it. But on some level, what my takeaway is, if one person knows something that could, help them or help someone they know potentially, then that's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you this one random incident that happened, that a few months after this, I got to know about my former crush's tragedy. I got a message from a random number saying they knew, they got to know about me and what I my mental health advocacy from a mutual friend, and they were asking for help. Now I was in a pickle because I not like any unknown numbers coming my way. I get super
Hmm.
paranoid because I've been a victim of bad prank calls. And trust
Fair
me,
enough.
folks, you get a prank call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you will feel like going and punching someone in the face.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, 3 o'clock calls are emergencies, or need the next person needs to be, or the person calling really needs a good rollicking. But yeah,
Exactly.
fair enough.
So I was very apprehensive, but then I messaged the mutual friend and asked, like, did you really give my number to this guy? And he's like, yeah, he said he needed some help. I'm like, okay. Then I told this guy, listen, what's happening? Let's talk. And turns out the guy was dealing with a bout of anxiety, loneliness induced anxiety, because he moved to Bangalore, he was all alone, had no one over here, and it was getting difficult for him. I think it was just those the home. It's probably the homesickness, but can't really comment.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he was like, I really need some help. I told, listen, dude, I cannot help you on a professional sense. What I can do is I
true.
can reach out and ask a couple of people, get some leads which you can use based on your budget, based on which area you're looking for, and stuff like that. So two to three, I asked a couple of people. I put messages on social media asking for leads and stuff, and social media, as much of a bane as it is, it can
It's
be
great for
such a
this. It
boon as
is.
well.
It is such a great help for certain things. Yeah, definitely
Exactly.
agree.
So I was, very thankful for whoever gave me some leads. And in fact, I had unknown people message me in my DMs also, like, hey, listen, we saw your post, or what is it that you need help with? So I reached out and told, like, I'll get in touch again. Um, Gave a couple of leads to this guy, and few months later, I met him at Kantirwad before one of the
Yeah,
matches, and the guy just gave me a hug, telling, dude, if you did not help me, I might not even be alive today. Now I'm at least able to live my life normally. I'm able to smile normally. Not 100%, but therapy is going really well, and it's just because of that small help you did. And I'm not trying to brag here by any means. Please don't
no,
mistake
no,
me. It's just that because of that incident, I realized that I can't save the world, but
yeah,
probably I can save one person's world, and probably one person at a time. And if that cascading effect works, so that this guy goes and helps someone else, or someone becomes inspired because of such incident and goes and helps someone else, then that's the cause worth fighting for. Small victories. This incident also taught me, sometimes small victories in life really, really count. And
yeah,
I think, what I will always tell. This is a big. I'm not getting the right word for it. Probably a big shout I'd like to give. Just talk. Anytime you feel, anytime you feel like there's something you're going through, struggling with, talk to someone you trust. It could be a friend, it could be a colleague, it could be a boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, wife, kid, parents, colleague, teacher, mentor, whomever it may be. Half your battle is fought when you start talking, because you might not you might not solve everything, but you tend to feel a lot lighter, and that helps kickstart the recovery process from whatever you're battling. And this is something I tell everyone, like, just talk. It's not easy. It is definitely not easy to open up.
yeah,
I'm speaking from experience. It's definitely not easy to
yeah,
open
yeah.
up, but the first step is always the hardest, right?
Yep.
So
No, definitely.
whoever's battling, your own demons, please, please, please talk to someone. And if need be, if absolutely required, please get professional help. There's always someone out there, and especially now, thanks to COVID, a lot of remote options are
Yeah.
available as well for people who need affordable and remote options too.
And it's becoming
So
even
please,
more pertinent nowadays with COVID, with the whole quarantining and the self isolation and just the
absolutely,
isolation in general. It's just become so pertinent now. So there's even more options now than there has been for the past 5-10 years. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
definitely,
And if in any way, like, it could just be something as small as just getting some professional's number to some random person, but it could help them, much more than you could even imagine.
yeah,
Every little bit counts. Even, and for those who wonder how you're supposed to tackle it if someone comes venting to you, listen to them. Do not
listen, yeah,
ask them. Do not give them unsolicited advice, because more than half the time, people do not want someone to advise them. They want someone to just hear them out, someone just to vent, rant, cuss, pour everything out there just to feel a little lighter. Sure, eventually they may want some advice, but
yeah,
be very, very clear on that as well. Like, listen, do you want me to listen to you, or do you want some advice? Because I can do both. And this is something I'm speaking from experience. I've given advice where people didn't want it, and I've just listened to people when they really wanted it, and just that little bit goes a long way. It's not it's not rocket science, or it's not a whole psychology course you need to take up. Just that, it may get a bit uncomfortable when sometimes your friends might break down,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, that's helping them. That's helping them much more than you can imagine. And I wouldn't say use words of affirmation all the time. Sometimes yes, just be there for them. Just be there. Just listen to people, and you never know. You could probably be the saving grace that they really needed at some point of time or the other.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah,
I,
definitely
I think this went a bit
sound
heavy.
worth. It went
I think this
heavy.
went a bit
No,
heavy, but
but it was required. I knew what I was getting into, and I wanted you to talk about it because it is pertinent. I don't think there are many like you who have, yes, unfortunately, faced issue a mental illness in the past, but have done well, or have found ways of, I wouldn't say, yeah, tackling or finding solutions to to the illnesses, or finding a way to live life to its fullest despite the illnesses. Uh, and you are probably one of the best people to talk about this with, because you've also the activism stuff, and you've been quite outspoken about all of this in the past. So and in the present as well. So yeah, no, this is definitely required. So let's probably end this a little bit on a happier note. So we've gone the full journey, and we'll probably come back to talking about uh, now. I don't know whether I want to bring this up. So okay, so we said we don't do football, but this is sort of related to it, because West Block Blues, right? I want to talk about their part or their role in your life. It's not got to do with football in general, but about this group of people who support Bangalore FC. I want to just talk quickly
I
about that.
where do I even start about West Block Blues, dude? Like, I can have so many stories from a non-footballing perspective itself. But if I have to summarize it in one simple sentence, they are my non-blood family away from home. They really are. I mean, I've found people, it's like, who made me feel welcome, because I've had a tough time fitting in the past, because I was always this quirky guy, a bit outspoken, and at the same time, I used to react pretty badly when people used to pull my leg. So for all the people who wanted to bully me, it was an easy way to get a reaction out of me, and I never fit in as a result anywhere. Here, the first time, when I went for a BFC match, not my first match, I'd say my second match, I started chanting and I felt like a fish out of water. But they joined and they, followed on. They encouraged me to be part of all chanting, all the noise, and I just felt welcome. And trust me, I've got people who feel like family now. And the reason I say that is because they genuinely have been there for me. When things were pretty bad with my dad's ill health at the time and eventual demise as well. Like, I can tell you this, uh, I had gotten not only messages from not only messages from fellow fans. I got messages from the club staff itself. Offering condolences, telling, listen, if you need anything, we're here, and stuff like that. At the same time, I had 15 or 16 people show up at my doorstep, people who I was not close with at the time.
Wow.
People who I did not expect to turn up as well, to to show solidarity and just be there for me on what was probably the worst day of my life. So that's just one of the that's just one of the feel good stories, because on the day I should have been crying a lot more, but for someone who you struggled to fit in, didn't really have people or didn't feel valued or just felt like people didn't want me around, to show that sort of solidarity, it was it was I don't know what's the right adjective to use in this case, to be honest. Because, like I said, I should have been crying a lot more, but I just couldn't stop smiling because I felt like fine. It's like a feeling of reaching the zenith, but
Yeah.
if that kind of makes sense, you've reached something, you've got something so unattainable that you cannot stop smiling at that achievement or accomplishment, even though those are probably not the right words to use in this particular situation. But yeah, I mean, I've seen people, I've seen people help each other in terms of getting helping out in terms of finances. I've seen people helping each other out through bad breakups. I've seen people become as tight knit as family, like as tight knit as family, as in they trust their family members with these fellow fans as well. There's so much of a bond that has come about that it's not even funny how how lucky, how privileged I am that I'm associated with a bunch like this. We are not the biggest in number, but what we have is something so pure, so unique, and it's organic. It's organic. It was built straight from the community, and I don't think I'd trade this for anything in the world. Like, as much as I'd love to be part of the Bayern fan base, someday, like in the stands, I mean, West Block A and the West Block Blues. West Block A is the name of the stand for people who don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, West Block Blues is the family. I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world. I know, I mean, I know I've got my responsibilities as the guy who leads all the noise and everything, but there's so much more that happens. So much more. And at the end of the day, everyone just has a good, everyone wants to have a good time and, you know, have that feeling of family vibes. Like, I can give one excerpt from, the open training session that happened recently. So the first thing what I did was like, I just got, my megaphone set up, and I had, I think before I could even start, screaming on the megaphone, I had hugged at least 15 different people in a span of 5 minutes. Like, and these are not small hugs; these are like proper bear hugs, like seeing you after forever types.
Yeah.
And it felt so nice. It felt so nice. It felt like it felt like the typical fam jam type of session, like
Yeah.
where
Like
everyone's just coming there
reuniting
to have a
after.
good
So
time
yeah.
and exactly like a reunion of sorts. So it
Yeah.
was just so pure, so nice to see, and on some level, I think even the players who were there on the day saw that, and it's just so much good vibes. Like,
Yeah.
you don't. I mean, I'm not saying that it's perfect. Everything, nothing is perfect in this world. But in spite of all of that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything. With for whatever disagreements may be there, whether I tend to have arguments every now and then. Which family does it, right?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I say family very strongly because that's how much we look out for each other, like literally. And yeah, it's just been a blessing more than a privilege. I'll call it a blessing to be associated with something like the West Block Blues, because forget the fact that we are the envy of the country, and I'm gonna put that on a very very tall, strong claim. No, what's the word? What's the
Pedestal.
word I'm looking for? Pedestal. Yes, I'm gonna put that on a very very tall and strong pedestal that we are the envy of the country. But more than being the envy of the country, we're a family that likes being around each other and likes doing stuff together. That's why we even have this thing called the Eddies. I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, but
I think you have, or I've seen it
yeah,
on
yeah,
social media. Definitely. That
yeah.
that
So
sounds that sounds insane.
yeah, for people who are listening in, basically the Eddies is our concept of the Oscars, where it's just a reason to go and have a good time with each other. Like, we have banter awards, we have serious awards. Like, our idea of what goal of the season, match day of the season, etc. should be banter moments of the season, and we even banter each other on match on that what's it called during the event. It's not like we spare each other. So it's all good vibes, it's all fun, and it's unique. So
Nice.
when you do stuff like this with people who want to do stuff like this and people who want to spend time with each other and look out for each other as well, nothing like it, right?
Oh yeah,
That's
definitely not.
and I'm definitely going to plug in the fact that hashtag nothing like it is BFC's hashtag for the season.
Fair enough. Yeah, that is the sort of heartwarming story we'd love to end this particular episode on. Um, I I wish we could say, and they lived happily ever after and never see each other again. But I want to sort of meet. I want to have that the next conversation and the next and the next, and I'm sure we'll have that in. If not for this series, we definitely have the other series where we'd love to have you on there. And yeah, talking about West Block Blues, hopefully my next trip there can probably make it for a game or so. I don't know how easy it's going to be to get tickets for the Bangalore games, but
You've got
yeah,
a contact, so you don't need to worry about that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm there in December.
December,
But
there are a couple of games.
yeah,
There are
the
a
one
couple of games.
I think the day that I arrived that evening, I think you're playing Jamshedpur. So maybe if I have nothing else on that day, maybe we figure something out there.
Yeah, we'll figure scenes out. Otherwise, people just think we're going to be talking about how to get you tickets for the match day.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, we'll definitely figure that. But I guess that's as good a time as any to call it a day. Thank you, Vijay, for coming onto this podcast, and it was a pleasure having you on here, listening to you, talking with you, just everything apart from football. I know the last bit was a little bit about football, but it was more about family than it was anything to do with football. But thank you for coming on here and giving your just having a nice friendly chat. Like I said, I wish we could do that. Could do this in person soon, sooner than later. And yeah, I can't wait to host you now for our proper podcast series soon.
Thanks for having me, Pradi. It was a pleasure from my end as well. Like it was unfiltered, and I just felt like it was probably a nice change because I mean we've always spoken about football, so it was a pleasant change to talk about things which aren't football as such.
Aren't football, yeah.
West Block aside.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's the whole point. I mean, we generally talk to each other, or through the podcast, I've made friends or have made contacts where I talk to people with stuff that's not about football, and I thought, let that also be for the audience who want to probably know a little bit more about people who might, like I said, find things that are common where they didn't think they might, or you find someone who is someone like, or you listen or hear or watch someone who is like you, and you relate more to that. And yeah, it's just about a general fun chat. And yeah, I'm glad you could be a part of season 1, because also I wanted to have you as part of season 1 because of the role that you played in the podcast. And also, I mean, apart from your other stuff, like you've done other stuff, and I've like, sorry to burn the bridge right now, but there are tons of people who have done similar sort of other stuff as well. But the reason I wanted to have you so early on in season 1 is because of how much you've meant for this podcast as well, being such an early participant in the podcast, and how you helped shaped it. And thank you for all of that. And like I said, can't wait to host you in the near future for our proper football talk.
Absolutely, and you're welcome, most welcome. Like it's just a small thing I thought which could help. And I mean, Twitter was probably a double-edged sword, but at the end of the day, it worked out. So
yeah,
glad I can help out in any capacity. And for I'd just like to leave one small message for anyone who's struggling in general. This is the mantra that I follow: one step at a time, one day at a time. That's the best way to deal with with a shitty run of days or a bad patch, basically. And probably that's also the best way to not reach a place where where you're at a high, then and a sudden crash down happens, which becomes as bad. Take it one step at a time, one day at a time. And as I tell every Monday, keep up the good fight, you will win it.
Awesome. And that's about it for episode number 2 of the Dressing Room series, Season 1. I'm your host, Praddy, once again. You stay safe and see you.